Today I'm going to repurpose this old fan blade into a reindeer shelf leaner. I'm going to start by using this truffle chalk paint by Waverly to paint a coat on the front and back side of the fan blade. Once that's dry, I'm going to use some acrylic paint in the color caramel to dry brush over just the front side of the fan blade. And I'm just layering it on heavy in some places, lighter in others, just to give it a little interest. I let that dry completely, and now I'm going to add a layer of this antique wax by Waverly. I'm wiping on a full coat on the top of the fan blade over where I painted the different layers. Then I'm going to take a wet wipe and wipe back some of the wax. Not all of it, but I do want a good bit of that lighter brown to show through, and I'm just kind of making it look streaky. And I'm also going to go around the edges to make sure they look kind of shaded. While that's drying, I'm going to work on my nose. So I'm using this little wooden round piece that I got from a craft bag at Hobby Lobby. I'm painting it with some lacquer colored chalk paint, and then I'm rubbing on antique wax so that it matches the theme of my reindeer base. And then I'm using a sander to sand around the edges to make it look distressed, and kind of rubbing on some more antique wax where that bright wood was showing through. I got this swag at a thrift store, and I'm going to take it apart. I think it'll be a really nice piece to use for antlers. So I'm taking off those flowers, and then I'm cutting away some of the bigger branches that were on there. And I'm going to use just the bottom skinnier pieces. I'm going to cut them apart, and then I can kind of shape them into antlers. But before I can use those, I have to work on my bow. So I'm using that wet wipe that had the antique wax on it, and I'm just running it down the strips of fabric that I have that I'm going to use for my bow to distress them and kind of antique them, grunge them up a little bit. Now I'm going to start layering everything into my Bodabra. I'm using this square piece of burlap as my base. I'm winding back and forth some drop cloth. I needed it to be a little longer, so I pulled those loops out, and later I ended up cutting the loops and just making them into strips because I didn't like the way that looked. Then I have this red piece of red strip fabric that I'm using. I'm just kind of looping it back and forth and trimming the ends. And then I have this red and tan striped fabric that I got from Hobby Lobby. I'm making a few X strips of that, and then I'm doing some bow loops on the front, on the top. And then I just pull it out and tie it up and fluff it and trim the ends. Sometimes with these bows, you just kind of have to take it apart and put it back together and play with it until you get it to look how you want. Now that my fan blade is dry, I'm going to go around the edges of that with a sander. I just like to kind of define those edges and grunge it up a little bit. And then I'm going to start putting it all together. I'm placing my branches on where I want the antlers to be, and I'm using this staple gun just to hold them really securely into place. And I don't usually put my bow on till last, but I decided to go ahead and put my bow on so that I can put the face exactly where I want it to be. I glued it to hold it in place, and then I stapled it to secure it a little bit better. And I have this pick from Dollar Tree. It's some branches and berries. It was a little more glittery than I wanted, so I'm using some antique wax just to try to tone that down a little bit. And then I'm going to cut pieces off of it and kind of just embellish those antlers a little bit. This piece was a pick from Hobby Lobby. It had some really cute twirly stick things that I'm adding in, stapling those down, and then kind of positioning them how I want. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue my nose on. And then I decided I wanted to work on the antlers a little more, so I'm adding a couple more of those branch and berry pieces to the top part of my antler. I'm tying them on with some floral wire, and then I'm also going to use my hot glue gun to add some glue to them. And now it's time to work on the face. You guys, I have so much trouble with eyes. I'm using this stencil, the letter O in this stencil to help me start with some circles. I just trace them on with a chalk pencil. And then once I get them how I want, I'm using some black chalk paint just to fill in the little eyes. And then I'm going to use that same pencil and draw a mouth. I'm just drawing a line down and then a little simple smile, just something super simple. I'm not really a painter. And then just tracing over that with some black paint as well. And then I'm going to dip the other end of my paintbrush into some plaster color chalk paint to make some little dots for the eyes. And then what's a reindeer without some sleigh bells? So I'm using this velvet ribbon that I got at the thrift store, and I'm gluing it down at the bottom. It's also going to help cover up those holes that were on the fan blades where I took the hardware off. I'm rubbing a little antique wax on that ribbon so that it's not as bright, so that it matches the rest of my project, and just kind of gluing that down, securing it really well. Then I'm going to take some jute string and some bells that I rusted. I'm just putting a little bit of hot glue on the end of that string so that I can string the bell on more easily. And I'm going to tie that down onto the ribbon to make it look like it's just sleigh bells on a little collar. Then I'm going to take some more jute string, tie it into a bow, and I'm going to string some larger bells onto the end of that. And then I'm going to tie it in a knot so that it hangs on the board just underneath the bow, and I'm going to also use it to cover up that bottom hole. Once I get that all put together, then I'm going to glue the bow in place, and then I'm going to go ahead and glue those bells down so that they stay right where I want them to be. Then I have this tag I stamped that says "Oh Dear" and this large bell from Dollar Tree. I'm going to attach those to the top of my bow to finish it off. And I think she turned out so darling. Let me know what you think in the comments, and be sure to share it around. Thanks for watching.